Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. Courtney and I are here to bring you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. Or in this case, the past 2 weeks, really. I'm your host, Sean Hayes, and with me is my wonderful co-host, as always, Courtney Bolin.
Hey, everybody.
So, yeah, we've got some D&D stuff to talk about this week.
And Sean has feelings.
Yes, I have some feelings. Really, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So we are on a bit of a timetable tonight. So do we want to get right into quickfire? Oh, quickfire news. Well,
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
all right. Okay.
Yeah. So, starting us off this week, Moon Knight, the new Marvel series, has found their star in Oscar Isaac. So he will be starring in that new Marvel series coming out about Moon Knight.
So this was 2 weeks ago. Sega had a big Sonic the Hedgehog 30th anniversary presentation type thing. They announced Sonic Colors Ultimate, Sonic Origins, Sonic Prime, which is a Netflix animated series, and that a new flagship title is in development.
Ooh.
So some of those are ports, some are new games, some are animated features.
Hey, we'll see what comes from it.
Yep.
So BlizzCon 2021 has been canceled. But Blizzard will once again host a virtual event in early 2022. So
piggybacking off of that, Burning Crusade Classic. So World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade Classic, that's a mouthful, is now live. So if you were playing WoW Classic, there was some convoluted method where like you could create a copy of your character to port over to these servers, and then level up past level 60. I think there was actually a fee to do so, which was controversial. And play the Burning Crusade as it was as of some patch. I think it might have been one of the later patches, because they do talk about Illidan and Shadowlands, or not Shadowlands. Whatever the zone's called. I don't care.
I don't know. It is already confirmed in canon.
It's my favorite expansion. It's one of my most favorite expansions. And I'm just like, but I remember what it was like to play it. I'm not going back. But yeah, those are live for people that prefer that sort of legacy experience.
Fun. So CyberPunk 2077 is I'm sorry, this is hilarious. It is still not available in the PlayStation Store.
Yep. Yep.
That's just,
Yep.
That's what they get. That's what they get.
All right.
And our last bit of news, Sean.
So before we get into the last bit of news, there's a thing I forgot to put in the show notes, so I'm just gonna throw it right in real quick. Loki premiered today on Disney Plus.
Yes, it does.
So
yes,
I haven't seen it yet, so that's why we're not talking about it.
I've been working all day. I wasn't able to either, but that's definitely it is on my watch list when I start consuming new media.
Today's the series premiere. Having a series premiere on a Wednesday is a weird idea.
No.
And it is a weekly release, like every other Disney Plus project, we'll call it. Presentation series. That's the word that I'm looking for. So now on to the last bit of quickfire news that will lead us right into our deep dive. 2 announcements this week from Wizards of the Coast about upcoming products. These were technically leaked on Amazon with like full product listings and everything. Nobody's really sure how that happened, if it was a staffer at Wizards of the Coast that accidentally put in the wrong date for when it posted live, or if it's just Amazon being Amazon, because they do this to everybody all the time, it seems.
Amazon's been doing that a lot with the new upcoming Switch too.
Well, that here's the thing. That
But it's
is
not taken down
if it's real.
But yeah.
Places have been doing quote unquote Switch Pro pre-orders for like years now, and there has yet to been a product that actually has been revealed. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So got leaked on Amazon. There are an adventure book and a setting book, or a setting source book. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight is the next adventure book, which will release on September 21st. This is going to focus on a Feywild adventure and seems to tie into the circus, which we talked about when we covered the Ravenloft book.
Yeah. Don't know how I feel about it.
The other one is Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, which is a setting source book based on the Strixhaven Magic the Gathering setting, which is basically Magical School D&D. There you go. Wizard School D&D, releasing November 16th. There is also an Unearthed Arcana for Strixhaven out right now, which we'll also sort of talk about in the deep dive. And this is really what I have feelings about. And that is pretty much going to wrap up the news this week. So next week, we will have E3 coverage, because E3 starts like tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
And finishes like on Wednesday of next week with Nintendo. Nintendo's the last person to present at E3. Apparently because E3 moved their schedule and Nintendo said, we're not moving ours. So normally they're like the first one to present. So, but yeah, we'll have E3. Yeah, we will have our E3 coverage and sort of wrap up next week. But just a reminder that is happening this weekend. So that is going to wrap up our quickfire news. So let's get into our deep dive. Okay. So really the thing that I have feelings about is, so the Unearthed Arcana that's out, introduces this concept of, class agnostic subclasses, which is, they give you a subclass where it has features that unlock after a certain level, but as long as you meet the level requirement, you can take whichever features you qualify for, when you would gain a subclass feature from your class.
Okay.
And what it does is these subclasses are only available to certain classes.
So not fully agnostic, but these casters can choose
for
instead of just
Strixhaven.
this class.
Yeah, for Strixhaven, these are the various colleges. So I will pull it up. But the various colleges, they're kind of like master's programs, basically. So we've got Lorehold College, which is you converse with spirits of the dead. And you also study time. The Prismari College, which is dedicated to the visual and performing arts, as well as elementalism. Quandrix College, which is dedicated to the study and manipulation of nature's core mathematic principles. Which is to say, physics and chemistry.
I'm like, is that like the Fibonacci sequence in Leaves? Like, type of deal? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like mostly physics is like the application of mathematics into natural concepts. Silverquill College, which is basically writing. It's the English department. And Witherbloom College, which is alchemy of life and death and harnessing the devastating energies of both.
Okay.
So you have these 5 subclasses, and how they're broken up among the classes is largely thematic, based on the colors that each of those colleges is associated with in Magic the Gathering.
Oh, so is this UA the tie-in part with that they're doing with Magic the Gathering?
No, the whole Strixhaven book. Strixhaven is a
That's
Magic the Gathering setting
okay,
that's
that's what
currently
I
out.
I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that that
Yeah,
was
it's like one
all
of the latest settings.
okay, I wanted to make sure that I had my fandoms correct.
Yeah, Wizards seems to be selecting like when the Magic the Gathering team develops a new setting. They seem to be meeting with like the D&D team to determine if this would make a good source book and then making that source book as one of the products being released.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of opinions on that. I'm neutral as long as it's a decent setting, like sure.
Yeah.
I do think D&D has magical school potential for running something in that. The only problem is, as we see with the subclasses, is you cut out a whole bunch of classes. So these subclasses are only for full casters. Okay, so this
Yep.
means that they have spellcasting progression from 1st to 9th level. Does not include clerics.
That's interesting.
It does include druids, but not clerics. But because it's only full casters, it's also no rangers, no paladins, no eldritch knights, no arcane tricksters, no artificers. You have a magical school with, studying nature's core mathematic principles or
I'm gonna say
using
you
alchemy
have
to harness
physics
life and death,
and no
and you
art.
don't have artificers. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I like equating this to master's programs. Yep.
yeah.
Ve
But anyway,
highly specialized.
so the concept of doing like a subclass that any or multiple kinds of classes could select it, I think is interesting. Is mechanically interesting from a game design perspective. Some of the themes I think fit with the classes selected, and sometimes I think they miss the mark. The most egregious example we have of this is the Mage of Prismari for the College of Prismari, which is the performing arts. Bards can't pick this subclass for the performing arts. The whole reason the Bard class exists for the performing arts. So really what this class is and what it mechanically is it's like an elementalist. It's like an elemental wizard type class. It's available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. Druids get it because of elemental nature magic. Sorcerers get it because sorcerers focus on like elemental evocation type magic. Wizards get it because wizards have access to every subclass. I have issues with this.
Yes. So I've heard a few of your issues. Now, so because this is from Strixhaven, is and you said that because that's like something already canon in MTG canon. And that's so there's a reason why because of that canon that it's no bards. Is that what you were getting at when we were talking off stream?
So what I meant was that I would have less of an issue if they just changed the flavor text of the college to be more elemental focused than performing arts based. However, that flavor text is already ingrained into the Magic the Gathering setting, and like it's already ingrained into the setting itself. So like if you're going to say this is Strixhaven, it's based on the Magic the Gathering Strixhaven. You can't change it otherwise then like you then why have it be based on that then?
Yeah.
I mean, or really just let bards have it. Like
I mean, to be fair, a DM could say, "Nah, screw it, let bards have it." Like, I mean,
you really could. They're all built to allow for that.
Looking at it from a number crunchy way, which I am not good at looking at things that way. But looking at it from a number crunchy way, if it wouldn't be a hindrance, um, I just say if you want to let a bard be able to have that subclass, just let them take it.
Yeah. I mean, basically what the, like, all the flavor text of every ability that they get is basically like using elemental magic
Yeah.
as a medium for artistic expression. And it's like bard.
I'm like
So
I'm
the only problem with this is if and when it's ported over to D&D Beyond is, I mean, you would have to create a specific bard subclass to allow people to select it.
yeah, I was gonna say because D&D Beyond wouldn't
Yeah.
let you pick it when it gets ported over. So,
Also, what's
but
funny is Mages of Quandrix, which includes, so their talents range from tangible physics, like multiplying plant growth and redistributing elements of probability and acceleration, to bizarrely theoretical exercises that warp the fundamentals of space and self. Druids don't have access to that. It's also
wait,
weird because it's like,
the thing with the plant growth, druids can't.
here's the other is they also don't get plant growth. So I feel like there's some messaging in the UA that isn't quite matching the mechanics.
Yeah.
So I feel like they need to change some of the descriptions on things. And like, here's the
Well,
thing, it doesn't affect gameplay at all. It
yeah.
affects presentation.
Yeah, it's like we have no problem with the mechanics that we are being given.
Yeah.
It's how they are being displayed. Now,
Like,
correct
here's
me
the
if
if
I'm
if they
wrong.
just kept talking about physics and probability and like, because they have quantum tunneling is a like the capstone feature for the subclass. So like that doesn't sound druidic, but manipulating plant growth does sound druidic.
Yeah. Now,
So
correct me if
it's,
I'm
yeah.
wrong with something, Sean, but now unearthed arcanas, like we've gotten some of them and they are not, and then we've gotten like books that have come out, or other official stuff that's come out, and it's not always an exact carbon copy.
No. So this is
So this is
sort
a
of,
good thing
these
about
are
unearthed arcana.
subclasses they have in there. This is to release this content ahead of time and get community feedback and make tweaks to it.
Yes.
These will ultimately go in the book. Like this is core stuff that would be in there. This is probably
Yes.
one of the first times that we got an Unearthed Arcana alongside the like a formal announcement of the book that it's like going into. All other times it's been like hinted at as to like what it's coming.
Yeah. So this could definitely, these small things, um I'm gonna want to see when Strixhaven comes out. Um,
November. Oh, you
well,
mean
no,
you?
like
Okay,
when,
okay, yeah.
yeah, no, when it physically comes out, if they have taken this feedback and seeing what the changes are between what we've gotten released in this UA and what is like officially published, because
Uh,
I have a feeling
Rest
that,
assured, this will probably be the first UA where I start submitting. Like, I've submitted feedback before, but it's always been like theoretical stuff on mechanical things because, like,
yeah,
number one, I can never. They give you like 2 weeks to a month maybe
yeah.
before asking for feedback, and it's like that's not enough time. Like, we play twice a month, and I never get to play, so I never get to test any of these things. This will probably be the first time where I'm able to submit books upon books of feedback, and it's largely cosmetic. But I say
Yeah.
this as someone who firmly believes that 4th edition D&D had a graphic design problem as opposed to a fundamental game problem.
Mechanics. Yeah.
Like, it's not that, like, I firmly believe that if the book presentation was more like the 3rd edition slash 5th edition books, that people
Mhm.
would not have had as big of an issue playing the game as they do with 3rd and 5th edition.
Yeah.
Um, like I firmly believe that. because it looks much more like a technical manual type thing. Whereas like, if they had presented stuff in the way that like a lot of Battle Master maneuvers are for the fighter,
Yeah.
people would look at it and be like, "That's D&D."
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Especially
but
since
yeah.
people have been clamoring for like the same design concepts, or especially martial classes in 5th edition. And I keep telling people this is how it was in 4th, and it blows their minds. They're like, "Well, that sounds great." Yes, it was. Watching all of you.
So what
So
I'm
yeah,
saying is though that there is hope that this UA will have these cosmetic changes. Because again, like we're not
I hope
talking about
so.
mechanics.
I hope so. I mean, and really, all they could do to fix the Mage of Prismari is just add Bard in there.
Yeah.
Like, Wizards gets access to all 5 of them. Is it really that bad for Bard to have access to 3?
Yeah.
Um,
Ugh.
like, lore, performing arts, and writing. Like, it's your own fault, Wizards, that you decided to make 3 of the colleges basically have overlapping disciplines.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So yeah. So to go into each of them, the lore one is you basically get a statue that is possessed by an ancestral spirit. So it's
okay.
another pet class. So for those of you that are trying to build a Pokemon Master, you can do Beastmaster Ranger, you can do College of Lorehold, you can grab a familiar, Paladin to get Fine Steed, you know.
Just multi-class it up to become the Pokemon Master.
Yeah.
Yep.
Major Prismari, it's all elemental stuff, as I
Mhm.
said before. So it's a lot of like, there's a lot of like movement effects where you turn into elemental stuff and like avoid opportunity attacks and things.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
uh, Elemental aura. Um, Again, elemental specialty. Uh,
Hmm.
wow. The capstone is basically reliable talent for dexterity saving throws.
That's kind of nice. That's kind of considering because
You also get proficiency in dex saves with it too.
wow, that's
Yeah,
kind of nice.
that's strong. Because dex
That's
saves are the most prolific, or the most common saving throw in the game.
oh yeah.
So yeah, Quandrix mages,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's a lot
just
of like meta magic type stuff.
yeah.
Moving people around, teleporting people around,
You're here now.
some Bane type effect.
Mhm.
Um, Quantum tunneling is you turn into a ghost. You're insubstantial, and you have phasing because it's quantum. So you just get resistance to like non-magical damage,
Mhm.
and you can travel through creatures and objects as if you were a ghost.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Very
not
interesting.
available to rogues.
That would be fun and broken.
That one's wizards and sorcerers.
That
So,
would be fun and broken.
silver quill mages, social skills, silvery barbs. What is this? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, that
Let's
would
use the
be
roll.
really, really broken.
It's basically a taunt. We get like a taunt type ability, which forces disadvantage on stuff.
Mhm.
Wait, it's so complicated. It's like you give an enemy disadvantage,
Yep.
and if it fails, you choose a creature within 60 feet, and they get like a free reroll. Wait, can reroll? Use a high. They get advantage, but it's a reroll. It's not straight advantage. Like if they roll, they roll. They can choose to use it. They roll again, and they use the higher result.
Yeah.
Darkness. Just darkness.
Just
I don't.
dark.
Oh, it's because it's ink. It's you take your pen and you go like, bip, 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 and you just create a cloud of darkness around you. And infusion of eloquence. Oh, you can change damage spells damage type to psychic or radiant.
Nice.
And apply extra effects to that. So basically, if it's like holy words, or if it's just like psychically powered type stuff. And then more enchantment type effects. Witherbloom.
Okay.
Witherbloom is life and death type stuff.
Everything's life and death. Everything's life and death.
Yeah, it's basically gaining hit points or dealing damage.
Yeah.
When you finish a long rest, you can use an herbalism kit and a pot or cauldron to create magical brews. So a little bit of alchemy.
Nice.
Yeah, you get a couple of different effects here. This would have been good. This is really what they should have done for the Artificer instead of like the random potions that you make. Just empowering necrotic damage or healing. There's a Withering Vortex, their capstone is there's a spell that functions the same way. It deals area like necrotic damage, and you restore hit points to your allies.
Oh, okay.
Or an ally. So yeah. So that's it. I mean, it's got some interesting stuff. It's just some of it's weird.
Yeah, we're probably gonna, get a lot between now and then anyway.
Like what's funny is the lore college doesn't seem very lore focused because it's about empowering your animate statue companion. And it's like that would not be the subclass I would expect to do that with.
Yeah.
So yeah. It also gives bards the ability to become a pet class. Just straight up. The statue even has different types that you can choose. So like attack, defense, or healing. So it has like tank spec, DPS spec, or healing spec. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see more on Strixhaven. I have been interested. So I've seen a couple of shows where they do like magical school type stuff. Granted, it was from the perspective of like all classes and not just magical school classes.
Yeah.
Or magical class school. So we'll have to see. I do worry that it would focus more on the magical stuff, and it would lead and that martial characters would end up getting left out. As somebody that typically plays a martial class, I am definitely interested to see what comes of that.
I don't know. I am as excited as I am for the setting book. I'm more excited about this Feywild adventure book.
For sure.
Now I have a question.
Sure.
Which you might know.
Okay.
So now, because Critical Role's Feywild, I mean, that seemed pretty easily fleshed out. Things like that. Is that based on is that a Matt Mercer make, or is that based on stuff that we already have?
The Feywild was introduced as a formalized concept in 4th edition D&D.
Okay.
had not really appeared before then. Elements
Mhm.
of it were kind of interspersed elsewhere. Like there's a 3rd edition manual of the planes, which has like fairy as a realm.
Yeah.
But it's
Like,
like,
I
it's one
know that,
that's
like
not
yeah.
really fleshed out very well. And it's like in the back section of a book of like, oh, here are other places that you could venture to. Um,
Mhm.
and like the main thing was like, time works weird in this realm. Also, there's Fae. And that was pretty much the description. It,
Okay, well, that's what I was wondering is some of those nitty-gritties, like, does time always work differently? And, um, like,
yes.
obviously, yes, it's the Feywild, there's always going to be Fey, like, that you don't get to play that
Yeah.
without it.
Um,
Um
so in 4th edition, and similarly in 5th edition, it was fleshed out a bit more, and it introduced the concept of the Feywild is an echo of the material plane or the
Mhm,
natural world, um, where it is like you take all the magic of the natural world and you dial it up to 11, and that's the Feywild.
mhm.
And to a certain extent, you take the nature and dial it up to 11 because it's kind of like Warcraft's Emerald Dream, where like it's kind of tied into nature, but like it's not the natural world, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Mhm.
so picture unspoiled wilderness meets like raw fairy power, ratcheted up as high as you can go. So you get, and the a lot of what was emphasized is it is a realm of magic and stories and fairy tales. So
Mhm.
things that makes like the rules that it follows are like the rules of stories. So you have things, and there was a book in 4th edition called Heroes of the Feywild, which introduced all sorts of options for hero characters from that plane.
Yep.
And it had some magic items, which were things like, and it was very fanciful magic items. So, um, like a cloak that when you took it off and you spread it on the ground, turned into a puddle that you could, a puddle of clean water that you can then scoop up, for
Mhm.
drinking. But as you scooped it up and you like returned it to a cloak form, it got smaller and smaller. Um,
Yeah.
Confectionery candies that like they come in pairs. When you eat one, like when you eat it with another person, they're meant to be like sweetheart confections. Like you
Aw.
like for like the next day or so, you like if you concentrate, you can know the emotional state of the other person that ate the
Oh,
confection.
nice.
Um, or little dolls that like animate and talk and like in a cute way because they're little
In a
gnomish
cute
dolls.
way, not an Annabelle way, got it. Or
Um,
Chucky way.
it depends on which part of the Feywild you get it from. Uh, so things like
Fair.
that where it got really fleshed out later on in D&D. Um,
Yeah.
and so this is more. It's still a relatively new area to be fleshed out. It doesn't have the history that places that like different material planes have, or
Yeah.
the Nine Hells, or the
Yeah.
Abyss, or
Like, that's why I was wondering,
places
like,
like that.
geographically, is it, like, as fleshed out or is that more up to each DM's discretion as to because like, the 9 hells, like, you know where they are,
Yeah.
you
So
know
no, to answer your question.
okay.
But it's intentionally so.
Well, yeah,
Because
and
of the
that's
nature of the
yeah,
plane, it's intentionally left a bit vague. So like they'll
okay.
call out specific locales,
Yeah.
or specific people, but ultimately they want to because they want to leave that sort of fairy mystery to it. Um,
Mhm.
which is why I think we're getting an adventure and not a source book.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I'm completely fine with an adventure because
yeah,
I like the idea of the Feywild having a lot of discretion as to how the DMs or GMs in general would like that to live.
yeah,
And how because I see the Feywild as a very uh it is such an active realm, but it is also a very much an ever-changing realm. It is, okay, well, we have to get to this area-ish. Um,
yeah. Um, Now, I mean, in fourth, they did flesh out a bunch of different areas and a bunch of different sort of subplanes,
Yeah.
layers. Like it would be similar to layers in the Nine Hells or the Abyss.
Yeah.
And layers might include sort of like the Frost Prince's domain, where it's all ice, and it's all like the realms of Jack Frost and similar, Winter Fae. But there's also one place where it's I think it's called the Isle of Giants or something similar to that, and it's all dinosaurs, which is like what weird. But it I laughed when I saw that because it's basically D&D putting Dinosaur Island from Final Fantasy into a source book. So intentionally left a bit vague, especially compared to like a setting like Eberron where stuff is very laid out and everything, or Forgotten Realms where every event that's ever happened ever before has been cataloged in like 37 different books and 27 different maps and
no, I like that, and I'm really looking forward to that. I really like the Feywild. I think that it's a really fun setting because of all of the chaos that can ensue.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the cover art by I believe Tyler Jacobson, it's got a hobgoblin with a top hat and a pocket watch. What's not to love? I bring this up specifically because there were complaints about the anachronism of a hobgoblin wearing a suit coat with a top hat and a pocket watch. And I want to point that out. Number one, it is the realm of fairies. There is no such thing as anachronism because time is fleeting and doesn't really exist there. Time is a construct of the whims of the Archfey, which is why it is dangerous for mortals to go there. Also, it's fairy tales. If you want to have a hobgoblin with a pocket watch, you can have a hobgoblin with a pocket watch. Does it make sense for the story is the most important thing.
I mean, even if it doesn't, like, if the hobgoblin wants to wear a top hat and a pocket and a suit coat and a pocket watch, and they want to be fancy, sure, let them.
Like, pocket watches exist in Neverland. It's fine. It's
yes,
fine.
They do. Crocodile ate one.
Fairies and watches can coexist.
Yes, they can.
It's people still have this very narrow idea of what D&D is supposed to be, quote unquote, which is
are they the your fun is wrong type of people?
Which is like a slightly grim, dark fantasy setting that is set in the early medieval period. But
those are
also
people who say your fun is wrong.
Aren't willing to accept that, like, for that time period, you would have to remove half the weapons from the player's handbook and possibly plate as it's presented. Because that didn't come in until much later. So yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Feywild regular cover book, that one also has the clown on the cover.
Yeah. Fairy clown.
I was too distracted and said, okay, yeah, that's cool over there. What's the alt cover?
The alt cover is a cat.
The alt cover looks adorable and wonderful, and that will be coming into my home.
This one, excuse me. This one is going to be one where I'm a buy the standard cover. I want that hobgoblin. I want the hobgoblin with the pocket watch. I wanted it before those comments, and now I want it even more after those comments, just to spite them. Because I'm petty like that. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. One thing that we're not sure of yet is whether it's yet another book that actually takes place in the Forgotten Realms, for like a third of the book, and then you go to the Feywild. My hope is that like it lets you start in the Feywild.
Mhm.
It's theorized that this book, because they have said that it will include player options and things, that this will be where we see a lot of those player options that were in the UA for Folk of the Feywild.
Yep.
So sort of like I think it was Elemental Evil, that adventure where it provided like Aarakocra and Goliaths and deep gnomes and other things like that. That we'll see, you know, the basically fairies and the owl folk and the rabbit folk and the Feywild hobgoblins.
Mhm.
So yeah, who knows? Maybe on top of like subclasses or feats.
Ooh.
There should be more feats, I think.
I am really looking forward to this.
Yeah, we
Just
will.
like it's just a fascination,
Mhm.
it's the little girl and it's the fairy tale lover in me. It's the, like it's if you something that, it happened, a few weeks ago. It's the whole, if you wish it hard enough, like it could happen. Um
Well, it could
or
happen, and you're gonna then regret that it did, because that's how that
yeah,
works.
but that's how that works, and
Yeah,
we've accepted that.
yeah.
Um, um, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I love the idea of the Feywild. I love every kind of adventure because I've seen a couple other different adventures within the Feywild, and I really like what I've seen happen there. Um, for the most part. And so like I'm really excited to see what this adventure is going to be. And you're right, I hope that it's not oh yeah, we're going to do most of this in Forgotten Realms and then oh yeah, the last third you end up in the Feywild. It's like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Um, but especially since it deals with the circus, like I can't imagine, because the circus, if it is the same circus as in Ravenloft, uh, is an interesting enough location on its own, where you could start from. Now I could see it having like a section, maybe even a, if it's even the first chapter of, here are the different places to introduce this campaign and
Yeah.
how you get your players there.
Yeah.
Your player characters there, I should say. Uh, but yeah, I hope that if it does have a tie-in with Forgotten Realms, that you spend as little time as possible in Faerun. I'm done. I'm tired of Faerun. I'm tired of it. I don't want to spend any
It's like
time
being
there.
it's like saying, I'm tired of Manhattan." Like, no, just bring me to this other plane. Because there's still so much that can happen in Manhattan, and so much has happened, and so much will continue to happen. But we 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 want a new plane.
Well, it's also like, say you have a sci-fi game, right? Or you have a
Yeah.
sci-fi setting or whatever, right? Which means like you could set it anywhere in the galaxy, like Star Trek. Let's say you use Star Trek as an example, right? This would be like the vast majority of well, actually, this might be a fitting example where the vast majority of Star Trek takes place on the Enterprise. But like, but it's not like it would be if they didn't go anywhere in the Enterprise, or if they didn't deal with
Yeah.
anything outside of the Enterprise. Or if it was like Deep Space Nine, to again continue with Star Trek, but like
Mhm.
nothing ever happened outside of Deep Space Nine.
Nothing ever
It
happened
was just
outside of
only things that happen on Deep Space Nine for like however many, like 9 seasons. It's like, I'm sure it could be great, and I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that you could do, but why? When you could do so much more. But why?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have a
No.
whole galaxy available to you.
Mm-hmm.
Why keep going back there?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I say Faerun, it's really the Sword Coast, which is like closer to the Manhattan example, where it's, you know, it would be like if you have an Earth setting, but everything that ever happens in all of the literature is like New England.
Oh, so it's Doctor Who, where everything happens in London.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
London,
If you
Christmas.
got rid of all of the non uh
Yep.
extraterrestrial episodes, like where
Yeah.
they travel to different, like if it's only where it happens in England across time.
I'd
Yes.
say the UK, but yeah,
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
there's some
The Sword
Scotland
Coast is a little bit
episodes.
bigger, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah. So there's just so much more that you can do. And
Yeah.
I'm tired. And they won't, because there's the Forgotten Realms Magic the Gathering setting coming out soon.
Mhm.
So we're just going to get more Forgotten Realms stuff, I'm sure. There is a theory that there is also some other classic setting in development that may be coming out this year or next year. So
Nice.
who knows about
And
that?
they just crank stuff out.
Um,
Like, it feels like we keep
so
getting
they
a
did
lot.
pick up the pace,
Yeah.
but like 2 books a year is still a slow pace compared to how it was in 3rd and 4th edition,
Oh,
where we were
really?
getting seemingly like a new book every 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And they were like player option books. So you
Yeah.
complain about how there's too many player options in 5th edition. 3rd and 4th edition would have driven you out, Courtney.
I'm like, I started with 3.5 in an Eberron campaign.
I have an entire bookshelf of 4th edition books, and it's all player stuff. Like it's not like monster books and everything or whatever. Like it's a couple setting books.
Yeah.
There's a couple monster manuals. The rest
Yep.
of it is all player options. Entire books just for player options, like powers, feats, subclasses, Paragon paths type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 3rd edition was even worse. It was even worse than that. So
It's funny though. It's like I'm not mad at it. It's just a lot.
yeah.
Like, not mad at all, but it is a lot, but I'm not mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
So
and we have a lot of time left still to speculate before both of these come out too. So like we have the whole summer
we are
to
getting more information at D&D Live July. I didn't write it down. I think it's July 16th and 17th.
Okay.
Yes, that's a Friday and Saturday. So yes. So
Okay.
that's sort of the big celebration when they talk about the upcoming products.
Yeah.
So that is when we'll get more info on these and any other upcoming titles.
Yes.
They're also doing so sort of how they did the Wilderness DM kit. They're doing a like Dungeoneering DM kit. So sort of the same stuff where it's like a lot of exploration focused rules and everything, but it's for underground and dungeons. So,
Okay.
if you're the kind of DM who kind of exclusively runs stuff like underground and in subterranean dungeons and things like that, might be worth it for the DM screen. I say pew pew, go away. So no. No, I like the overland stuff a lot better. I don't like having players spend oodles and oodles of time underground, like in a building. It's like you've spent 47 days in this prison that's been deserted. It's like, no. No, Phasmophobia, you do like 20 minutes in and out. 20 minutes in and out, and 3 people have died. Let's go.
What's the Rick and Morty quote? Like, quick trip, 20 minutes, in and out, we'll be gone, we'll be done. And it's like, no, it's not 20 minutes, but but close enough.
I don't mean like 47 sessions. I mean the characters spend 47 in-game days.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
That's
It's also,
like,
I feel like it's when you run stuff in dungeons, it draws everything out. And you have sort of what it's not really a big spoiler, but like a lot of the later episodes of Critical Role where it was like the longest day.
yeah.
And it's just like too much stuff happens in one day. Like, so.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
No,
I'm
just
I did ask people what sort of books would they like to see come out, and nobody said anything.
Like, I'm excited for this Feywild book to come out.
Yeah.
And it's good because that's the first one coming out. But yeah, I will definitely be getting the alt cover though. That you enjoy that regular cover, Sean. Yeah, I do not need a Harlequin clown. Like, no. Even if the books stay in the jelly cabinet, I don't need it in the house. No, we don't need it in the house.
So we got Aaron Engineer in the chat says, I'd like an espionage book. I think that'd be tough. Right? Because so like with espionage, typically the way espionage works is if you have to do combat,
you kill them in their sleep.
Like, well, if you have to do combat, you've likely failed the mission. But at least with how like a lot of fantastic espionage works.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like, there's a lot of James Bond stuff that barely qualifies as espionage. Like, that's just straight up action film. So yeah, like it's also because here's the other thing is a well-written adventure gives players multiple paths to a solution. So like if you want to take an espionage path, sure. But like if you're playing a group that very clearly is not good at it, like maybe they enjoy it, but they're not very good at it. Like they're not going to have a great time. I say this as I DM a group of players that are quite terrible at espionage. In fact, quite terrible at most things that aren't just kicking in the front door and blowing things up with fireballs.
That sounds about right.
I'm calling them out.
Appreciate that.
I mean, also, we do have a number of really good options. But
I think, and I don't think that it would actually be appropriate in a book to come out, but as like but it's more like I would love like a political, like a largely very political, like tutors, like your members of the court, and like dealing with the backstabbing and the all of that political intrigue and figuring out like, oh man, if I talk to this person and they see me talking to them, like that's gonna, like that kind of intrigue and espionage, but not necessarily the Spy 007 style.
So I think again that gets tricky. There's a little bit of that in Dragon Heist.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of that though definitely can come more from the DM describing and planning.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. I'm going to say something very controversial, possibly. I don't think D&D is the kind of game for that type of adventure. I think D&D is like, if you're going to focus heavily on social role playing and social relationships,
Yeah.
there are other systems that do that much better than D&D does.
Okay.
Because D&D is largely based on using like sort of combat abilities. Well, and a lot of abilities in D&D that affect social stuff just boils down to whether it gives you bonuses to social skills.
Fair. Yeah.
Um,
I would like to look into different
because it doesn't give you um like class
systems.
features that are like you get, 3 contacts that provide you with stuff. Um
Mhm.
or yeah, or things like that, right? Because ultimately D&D has a very large combat focus. So a lot of your class
Yeah.
features go towards combat. And a lot of the like quote unquote social features or non-combat features end up being like skill proficiencies or
Yeah.
I don't know. Uh like detect evil or
Mhm.
the whatever that like detect evil and good or whatever the paladin has. Um
Mhm.
they're called ribbons where they're like sort of flavorful type stuff. Um that uh often from a class design and character design perspective like aren't even factored at all in a class's overall weight.
Yeah.
So now it suddenly becomes a thing where if you're going to run a very social heavy game like that and you want to give class like you want to focus on classes that have like social elements, now like champion fighter doesn't really bring a whole lot to the table.
Yeah.
Like Battlemaster, they
Y-
added a bunch of stuff in where you can, but again, like all it is adding to persuasion or insight or deception or whatever. But there's not
Yeah,
a whole
it
lot
does.
of like actual
I'd say the D&D
features.
system. I'd say the D&D system. Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's espionage is much more of a social thing a lot.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, we lost Courtney. I say this because Cortex Prime has examples of a how to run like a game. I mean, it's basically the genre is called soap opera. How to run a soap opera
yes,
type game
there we go.
where
Yeah.
the focus is on your relationships and allegiances to other characters.
Yeah. I like that. So, yeah, we're gonna run a soap opera. Yep. That's what I want. I want a soap opera.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this is ignoring like White Wolf stuff or World of Darkness because I guess White Wolf doesn't even own World of Darkness. I don't know. It's something weird. Um, where like that's often portrayed as like how to do social things. Um, I but I think it's just that it kind of has the same problem as D&D. It's just that it's less combat focused and so it's not as prevalent.
Yeah.
Um but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but you would have to look into systems designed specifically for social stuff um to really do that type of game well. Like a political intrigue type of game, you know. Having a system where influencing one person, like you would have to rely heavily on a reputation like system, which you can
Yeah.
do in D&D. They have the renown system, but it's relegated to the DMG. So, if you want to like build off of that, you can only put it on DM's Guild. You can't release your own books for it.
Yeah.
Because they don't talk about it in the basic rules.
Yep.
Uh, and the trick is that you would have to make it elegant enough that it doesn't feel overly cumbersome,
Mhm.
um, while at the same time uh, being interesting enough to warrant using it, right?
like,
This is the
hey,
problem I
we
have
have to
whenever
make
I've
this.
brought up variant rules to use with my own group that Courtney's a part of, is like, I'll bring up things like, oh, well, what about a variant system for tracking items and things? It seems interesting, but it also deviates so far from like what's done
Mhm.
that it ends up just being cumbersome to use.
Yep.
But to give some insight into this, like with the Jamora book, I'm looking at doing a crafting system. The
Mhm.
way I'm thinking about doing the crafting system is looking at combat, because combat is basically what D&D does best.
Yep.
And mimicking combat stuff for crafting. Right.
Okay.
Sometimes even just straight up lifting, combat maneuvers and stuff, tweaking the flavor even, and then just saying, yeah, you do this for crafting. Like rush job is a crafting
Ah.
technique, right? Where
Yep.
um so when you make a check for crafting, and folks who are fans of Great Weapon Master or Sharpshooter will recognize this mechanic. You can take a -5 penalty to your roll, and if you succeed, you get plus 10 points for crafting. And the
Mhm.
idea being that like a crafting project has, quote unquote hit points.
Yeah.
And you have to, when you generate enough points to meet its hit points, is basically when you damage your project enough to reduce its craft points to 0, it's completed and you craft it. Yay, you succeed on your goal.
Or you be one of those people that counts your hit points up.
I mean,
And
that's basically how it
yeah.
works. But,
Yeah.
same thing. It's using
Yeah.
the existing systems within the game to um, basically add something that is
Yeah.
otherwise very nebulous and not well defined,
Mhm.
which was the designer's intent. But there has been plenty of community feedback that they wish there was more.
Yeah.
So, and I think there is the design
Yeah.
space for more. So, anyway, that's gotten way off
Yeah.
topic on
Yeah.
these books. These 2 books. So we're going to learn more about them at D&D Live. Possibly information about other stuff. I mean, we'll likely get info on Dark Alliance, which is a game coming out for PC and Xbox, I think. Which was the 3rd announcement this week, but not very exciting because it's just been all over Wizards marketing for like the past 2 months.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it's also not being well received compared to people that have played Baldur's Gate games before. It's like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, folks are not happy about it. Otherwise, I think that's gonna wrap up our deep dive.
I think so.
Do we want to do quest log real quick?
Yeah.
Quest log is where we talk about what sort of geeky stuff is on our to-do list, as in
Yes.
what is in our quest log, and what
Yes.
sort of stuff that we're adding, we're taking on. We're going to the quest giver and taking on new quests that we hope to achieve by the end of next week, or by podcast time next week.
Yes.
Courtney.
Yeah, so I have been doing some good job continuing working on my Stardew, cooking, getting all the ingredients, doing all of the fishing for that. I have 4 fish left to fish up. Uh and it is winter now. So I'm waiting for the winter market.
No fish.
No,
I
I
mean,
was able to
I
get
know
my
there's
squid.
fish, but I mean, no fish for you.
I was able to get the squid that I needed.
Okay.
And I was able to get the tuna that I needed because that's on Ginger Island still. Um, but I'm waiting for the in-game to get to the winter market so that I can get those spring crops that I don't have, which should be the last. And then I just have some animal products to be able to get. But yeah, I'm making pretty good progress on it. I'm very, very happy with where I am. It's just kind of waiting it out, like going through the physical days in Stardew and because I'm only on like day 4 of winter, which is just a little bit annoying just to have to like wait. I've been spending a lot of time on Ginger Island doing a lot of farming over there. So
How's the ostriches coming?
So the reason why I'm doing as much farming on the island that I'm doing is because I'm getting so
Should
frustrated.
we move on?
I'm getting frustrated because I'm not finding any more secret notes. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of mining and a lot of farming
Yeah.
on Ginger Island
Mhm.
so that I can try and get that next no, it's the next one.
Yep.
The next one.
Yep.
I'm trying.
I figured that there wasn't much progress on the ostriches.
You will know when I get my
boy.
ostriches, Sean. I
Oh
will
boy.
send you a message. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning and you'll get it in the morning. There will be a message.
I leave my phone in the other room, so
I know, that's what
won't
I said.
care.
I don't care if it's 2 in the morning, you'll read
I'll
it in
get
the
it.
morning.
I won't read it until much later. Yeah.
You'll read it in the morning. That's fine.
Or will I? Just leave my phone on D&D mode.
Ooh.
I saw a post on Instagram talking about like something about people who leave their phone on silent or D&D mode or whatever, and blah 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 or whatever. Somebody was like, here's me searching frantically for how to set my phone to Dungeons and Dragons and being disappointed.
Yeah, no. All y'all lucky folks that can put your phones in D&D mode. But
yeah. All right. So
what about you, Sean?
have you? So I guess you've completed 1 out of 1.
I've completed 1 out of 1 of continuing to make progress. I am
incremental progress.
Yes, incremental progress. Yeah.
So I've done a pretty good job at coloring chapter 1 comics. I've been doing multiple a week.
Nice.
Trying to get back on track and get things up and running. Later this month, I will be on vacation from work, sort of a staycation. My goal is to get a whole bunch done that week, and really get caught up. So I think I actually have 60 comics done now, so we only have 40 left.
Nice.
40.
Nice.
I don't know. There we go. 40.
Yeah.
40.
Yeah.
So, TikTok video. I think I made. Oh yeah, no. In the past 2 weeks, yeah, I've made a TikTok video where talking about food, using food.
So you talked about food.
Using food to increase immersion and engagement in your D&D games. Just simply thinking about what sort of food do people eat in various regions in your setting. I'm a big fan of just thinking about like simple things like that, and then, you know, if necessary, building out the really high level stuff. Because I mean that's a big thing, and people like little details like that.
And you can learn a lot about a culture from their food.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can learn a lot about an area too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a you could infer many different things from, you know, a culture that eats like frogs' legs and crayfish versus one that eats, you know, spider, crab, and eels. Despite the fact that, you know, it's 2 forms of shellfish and 2 forms of, well, amphibians versus fish, but, you know, whatever. Yeah. Similar type stuff. Or here, we'll say instead of frogs' legs, pythons versus eels. There we go. So it's 2 snake-like things versus 2 shellfish. You know, versus a culture where it's oysters and worms. Yeah. Very different things can be inferred. You know, versus one that's beef and onions.
Yep.
Right? A lot of inferences to be made. But even just, you know, little details like that, you know, they help flesh out a character, make them feel a little more involved with the story.
Oh, absolutely.
There will be another TikTok video coming about gritty D&D games and how you can make one.
Ooh.
So I did make a bunch of fighting styles for Jamora. I did also basically complete the Wildlands section. So like the other sections where there's not a lot of big communities there, it like Bronner, it's more of a little like here's like an overview of the area. That if there's interest, that's a big if. You know, maybe it would be like a future supplement or something, you know, talking about that. So
Cool. Nice.
And as far as upcoming goals, I mean, yeah, coloring more comics, TikTok video, and I think Winter Bite is up next for Jamora.
Nice.
So, and that'll be a similar one. Like Winter Bite's one of those Arctic regions. They don't really have big communities. They can't really support big communities. You know, they support like small towns and stuff because you know, snow like 9 months out of like thick, deep snow 9 months out of the year. So, so yeah.
Fun.
Is going to wrap up our episode for this evening. Thank you all for joining us. If you want to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out 8-bitadventures.com. Over there, you can find comics, artwork, podcast, stream, VODs, and more. If you want to help support that content, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out, thank you to all of our current patrons. Thank you so much for your support and for help keeping the lights on. And our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. With that, we're finished for this week. So, as always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.
Bye, everybody.